Every week, one email on Wednesday morning about mental models, productivity, creativity, and more. Hope you sign up. Today, first of all, the sun is beaming in here because literally I went to draw the blinds and the thing broke and the whole thing fell down. So it's all straight sunshine for me, sunshine. And today we are answering a question that I received via email. This question is from Lucas. So Lucas says, I have a question about motivation that hopefully goes a bit deeper than the surface level of how do you get motivation? I've found that motivation shouldn't be the driving force that guides me, as it's something that fluctuates all the time, and that concepts like drive or motivation make it seem as though the deciding factor is an inherent wanting, that I don't want it enough, and that's why I'm not doing the things I say I want. But this isn't true. This person writes, I have ADHD, I'm 20 years old, I'm a college student. I constantly wrestle myself into doing things, and even when I win, it's still extremely difficult to get things done. Fear is a good motivator, but it's the only reliable motivator. Living life with this constant fear just worsens my anxiety. So my question for you, Dan, is this: where does consistent motivation come from? Is life really supposed to just be this hard all the time? So first of all, thank you, Lucas, for sending me that email. Lucas emailed me via my website, which is nolessthan.com. You are welcome to do the same. So let me rephrase Lucas's question like this. Lucas says, look, people tell me that the key to doing stuff is you got to want it, that you got to be motivated. And if you're motivated, you're going to do the thing. So the fact that you find it hard to do this difficult thing, that's proof that you don't want it enough. And Lucas says, the only thing I can find to motivate myself is fear. Fear of missing the deadline or letting someone down. But that causes anxiety. Is life supposed to be so difficult that the only way I can get things done is to impose a constant sense of anxiety, of looming deadlines and upset teachers or bosses? Do I have to impose this upon myself in order to get anything done? Well, there is a lot to that question. And the question that you are really asking is about self-regulation. If you look at the academic literature on this topic, this is what's referred to, self-regulation. It is simply the situation in which you have conflicting desires. Now, some researchers will refer to a higher desire and a lower desire. So what do we mean by that? A lower desire has an immediate and more concrete goal. I'm hungry, I want to eat. I feel horny, I want to masturbate, right? I am tired, I want to go to sleep. These are considered low sort of tiered goals. And it's not because they're bad in and of themselves. They just have immediate and concrete goals. Higher drives or higher goals are considered things with more abstract end results, or end results that are further in the future. I want to be happy is an abstract result. I want to release a record that I'm proud of. That's an abstract result that is also in the future. The more abstract and the further into the future you get, the higher that desire tends to be. The more concrete and the more immediate a desire is, I'm hungry, I want to eat a burger, that's considered a lower desire. Self-regulation occurs when you are forced to, or not forced to, but when you want to choose to pursue a higher desire at the cost of the pursuit of a lower desire. All right? I am hungry and I want to eat a burger. That's my low desire. My higher desire is I want to be attractive and I want to be more fit. I mean, again, however you define this, this is just an example. Therefore, I can't eat the burger, so I'm going to eat a salad instead. If we choose the higher desire over the lower desire, we are self-regulating. And if we choose the lower desire over the higher desire, we have failed to self-regulate. Now, there's a lot of judgment in there, right? And I don't mean for it to be this. I think we view all this stuff as a moral imperative. In Western culture, largely, we have this idea that you are a morally upstanding person, a strong person, if you can successfully self-regulate and choose an abstract goal over a concrete goal. But I don't really believe it's necessarily right or wrong. It comes down to really what do you want to achieve. And it is true, at least as far as we know from the research, that higher levels of self-regulation are actually correlated with higher levels of life satisfaction, success, and so on. You may have heard of the famous marshmallow test, where they put the marshmallow in front of the kids, and the kids that, there's some kids that eat the marshmallow right away, and there are other kids that can delay eating the marshmallow because they were told if they can wait 10 minutes, they'll get another marshmallow. And then they followed up with these kids 10 years, 20 years later, and the kids that waited the longest had the highest GPAs and yada, yada, yada. All right. So that's the background of what we're talking about here. That's the issue we are discussing. All right. Now, here's a couple things to keep in mind. Yes, self-regulation is hard. Why is it hard? It's hard because we are choosing an indeterminate and indefinite and uncertain potential payoff over an immediate payoff that is certain. For me, this is not eating Taco Bell because I want to look a certain way. Well, I love Taco Bell, and I know for a fact if I eat Taco Bell, I will get a certain chemical reaction inside my brain, and I don't really know if I'm ever going to look the way I want. So I am sacrificing an immediate and sure thing for something that's uncertain and in the future. And human beings are not really wired to do this well. It makes sense. If you look at evolution, you think about what was it like before industrial food and industrialized food manufacture and all this stuff. Well, if you're in the jungle and you come across a banana, you got to eat it now because you don't know what's going to happen later. It's a survival mechanism. So it makes sense that, yeah, it's hard. And Lucas, who wrote this email, Lucas says, I have ADHD. He's in college. So not only does Lucas have parts of his personality that are neither good nor bad, by the way, because I think ADHD, a lot of people with ADHD who are incredibly creative, and there's a lot there that indicates is connected to lateral thinking and all that stuff, but just there's a part of Lucas's personality, at least as it exists right now, that kind of makes it difficult for him to focus for uninterrupted periods of time. So that makes things difficult. And he's in college, which means he's getting homework. He's got a lot of social opportunities. There's a lot of people around. In general, it's kind of an environment with a lot of possible distractions. Not to mention the fact, by the way, as I record this, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. So it's a little difficult. Is it hard? Yeah, it's hard. Here is the thing to keep in mind about this difficulty, okay? It is hard, but it can be a lot easier. You will never stop struggling with it, but your win rate can get higher and higher and higher. A couple things to keep in mind. For one, the more we practice self-regulation, the better we get at it. I've seen willpower compared to a muscle, and I don't know if that's actually how it works, but as a mental model, it's kind of useful. The more you work out the muscle, the stronger the muscle gets, the more weight you can lift. So maybe right now you can't sit down and focus for 5 hours in a row and write a paper, but maybe you can sit down for 10, or you can do a Pomodoro, do 25 minutes of work or a 5-minute break or whatever it is, and maybe you just Get better at those, and you can do more and more over time. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard for everybody, but you can get better at it. You can get better at it in the sense of like your physical capacity for it. You can also get better at it in the sense of finding strategies that work for you. This has been the focus of most of my work over the past couple of months. In Better Questions, my weekly email, I've been writing lately about risk. I've been talking about risk mental models and stuff. But in my spare time, I have been working on productivity. And why am I working on productivity? I'm a 40-year-old man. Why am I working on productivity? It's because the nature of my work has changed and the results I'm trying to produce have changed. And so my strategies for getting things done have to change along with it. And so I have had to experiment and try and fail and look for a variety of different ways to find the things that work for me, the strategies that allow me to successfully self-regulate. So for example, I've been pretty open about this. A couple of years ago, I was having an incredibly hard time focusing. And I discovered that one of the underlying reasons for that was that I had low testosterone. And now I get a shot. You can tell I'm on steroids, right? You can tell. But the reason I get the shot is not because I want to be big. It's clearly I'm not getting big off it. The reason I got the shot was I couldn't focus without it. And after I got the shot, my level of focus went way up. On top of that, there are strategies in the sense of how do I divide my work and understand my work. So for example, a big thing for me was understanding the theory of constraints, this idea that no matter how complex and how complicated and how overwhelming a system is, there's really only ever one place at which to improve the system, and that's at the constraint, the bottleneck. So you focus all your time on the one thing that's a constraint, and all of a sudden when you fix it, everything else gets way easier. So I used to get overwhelmed by the million different things to focus on. And then I realized, oh, there's this rule of thumb I can use and focus my attention and just do that thing. And when I do that thing, everything else gets easier. And so you have kind of a compounding effect. I'll show you right here. Understanding some principles of effective work. This system back here is essentially the guts of my own productivity system. It's a Kanban. You might notice it. I didn't make it up. It's been a part of manufacturing and Japanese manufacturing for over 2 decades now. I have a particular system I use with mine. The sticky notes mean one thing. The magnets, which are blue and white, they mean another thing. The swim lanes, which are the horizontal lanes, mean a certain thing. Every week I track this. I convert what's on this sheet into numbers. I track my numbers over time. I make sure that those numbers are improving over time. So I didn't jump to trying to be the most productive person right away. What I said was, what's my baseline and can I get better? Let's bring it back to Lucas. Lucas is in college. He's having trouble focusing. Well, okay. What's your baseline and can we have relative improvement? So for example, use the Pomodoro. Pomodoro is a technique. Again, I didn't make it. You can Google it. Pomodoro. It's 25 minutes on with 5 minutes rest. Kind of like high intensity interval training if you like working out. So you say, how many Pomodoros can I do? I'm literally, by the way, I'm going to give you this entire system right now. I'm just going to give it to you. I'm going to turn this into a course eventually and sell it. I'm going to give it to you right now for free. Figure out the metric by which you judge your productivity. It could be the things you produce. It could be the time you put in. Doesn't matter. Figure out what your baseline is. I can do 1 Pomodoro at a time before I go completely off the rails, or half a Pomodoro, or a quarter of a Pomodoro. Okay, that's the baseline. Track it for a week, figure it out, average it out. What is the total number of Pomodoros I can do per day? Right? So you do an entire week, you measure how many Pomodoros you can get done. I did 7 Pomodoros in an entire week. Okay, well, average it out, that's 1 a day. That's my baseline. Then do it. First thing you do is you take the average, you make it consistent. So you do 1 Pomodoro a day. You now have a consistent schedule. You don't move on until you do that thing. Do it. 1 Pomodoro a day. Then, once you have a consistent average, where you're doing the same thing every day and you know what you're doing, Let's try to improve it. How can we experiment? Maybe if I go to the library instead of my room, how does that affect how many Pomodoros I produce? Maybe if I put on a white noise machine. Maybe if I put on noise canceling headphones. Maybe if I exercise before. Maybe if I exercise later. We are introducing one variable at a time in order to judge what happens to the number. Now, where this gets really cool is when you start to use a system like a Kanban, for example, to diagnose constraints or bottlenecks in your own workflow. You fix those, all of a sudden you start to notice your average goes up. And then when you start to take on new projects, you say, well, okay, I know I can do 7 Pomodoros. In the beginning, you're like, I can do 7 Pomodoros a week. That means that's all the work I can do this week. I better plan for that. It's a focusing mechanism. I only have 7 Pomodoros. What can I do? I can't go to a party if I only have 7 Pomodoros, or whatever it is. I can't take on that project if I only have 7 Pomodoros. If I only have 7 Pomodoros a week, how many classes can I take? It's a focusing mechanism. Then as you experiment, you start to get things better. You have more to play with, and the system keeps improving. Now, all that's really tactical or whatever. But here's the big thing to keep in mind. This is directly the answer to Lucas's question. Is life supposed to be this hard? And the answer is yeah. For the vast majority of people, life is incredibly difficult. Everyone you run into, everyone you meet, no matter how they look on the outside, they are moving through a world that imposes an extremely high level of friction on them, of difficulty. And once you get past an obstacle, there's not clear sailing and clear skies ahead. There's another obstacle and another one after that and another one after that. It's like the Notorious B.I.G. said, mo money, mo problems. It's not mo money, my problems went away. And it's like that with everything. You think when you jump the hurdle, there's, green pastures on the other side, and there never is. It's just more friction and more difficulty and more obstacles. Not the same obstacles, different ones. So the question becomes, look, it's not you jump through the hoops and everything's great. Your whole life, you're going to be jumping through hoops. So the question isn't, what do I need to do to make it easy? The question is, when do I want to stop? What's important to me? How much money do I really need? Because at that point, I can just stop. I don't have to play somebody else's game. I don't have to keep jumping through hoops thinking at some point the hoops are going to stop, because I know they never are. So yeah, life is difficult. But the secret to it is that you get to decide how much is enough. And once you get to a point where enough is enough, and you feel happy, and you feel validated, and you feel secure, and you feel like you are achieving what you want to achieve, you can just stop jumping through the hoops. And then, if you can manage it, then life is easy. I hope that makes sense. Lucas, this was a great question. I hope this helps you. I love you. I love everybody that watches these. Thank you for tuning into me every single day. I appreciate it. Better Questions email. If you know anybody that might like these emails, I would love for you to pass them on. It would really help me. And I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow.